That's great. Yay. Okay. Now that was a lot. And Stephanie had some good stuff to say, obviously. I mean, most of what she says is great. But does everyone feel like you understood sort of what Stephanie was saying?
I'm really interested to hear more about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because I've never really thought about it. Because the church originally borrowed it from the harvest days, right? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's one of the things that Stephanie's implying.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that it's quite that simple.
It's not so
because even like if you think about Easter or Pentecost, where did the Feast of Pentecost come from?
Well, it was after Christ's death.
It was Jewish. It was Jewish. It was a Jewish feast.
Oh, right.
There was a Jewish feast called Pentecost, right? So that's interesting, right? Some of the Christian feasts are built on top of Jewish feasts.
Right.
Now, those Jewish feasts could themselves have been built on top of pagan feasts.
Hmm.
I was thinking too, when does anyone read Gilgamesh?
Yes.
Okay,
I have it on.
yeah, so like at the very
flood.
beginning. Yeah, but before the flood, right, at the very beginning, when there's the story about the gods making Enkidu. And there's three things that make him human. One of them is wild and vigorous sex with the temple priestess. But the other two things are bread and I think it was bread and wine. I think it is bread and wine.
Is that two things or one thing?
So it's three things.
I know, but bread and wine, is that two things or one thing?
I think it's two things.
Okay.
Well, and I at least when I was reading it, it got me thinking about the way that both of those things are fermented, where you have to like
yeast.
Yeah, like you have to, it's a time thing. It doesn't happen automatically, like both of them are
Yes.
better time planning.
Yes, 100%. Here's what I want to say.
You're bringing a new concept, a new religion to people. Pagan means just outside the walls, that's all that means. They lived outside the walls, so they were the last ones converted into this new faith. If they had customs and things that they were used to doing, they were born into them.
Yeah.
The easiest way to accomplish that conversion is to build upon what's there.
Yeah, especially if there's really and truly a connection with the gospel.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, so it's not.
I happen to live those seasonal cycles
Yeah.
along with this one.
Awesome.
And it works.
Yeah.
It just works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're simply a secular person, you have no inkling that time can be what? That time can be
Not perfect. I think not.
Sacred?
what? I like not perfect. I think what you mean is not uniform or instrumental.
Not like an atomic clock.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm gonna piggyback on what Ryan said and say that like if you held a gun to my head and gave me truth serum and said, "Hey Matt, what is time?" First thing I would say is, "I don't know." Read St. Augustine, book 11 of the Confessions, where he says we don't know what time is, but it's connected to our souls, our psyches. It's something that human beings experience. Okay, but I would also say that Aristotle, this is so embarrassing, but Aristotle, book 4 of his book, The Physics, talks about chronos. Let me hear you say chronos. And he defines chronos as, it's one of the Greek words for time, as
He was partnered with a knockout necessity.
There you go. That's funny. So Aristotle said that chronos or time is I'm going to say a function of motion. Now, Aristotle was no dummy. And I think that even physicists today many of them, now we could talk about quantum mechanics. We won't get into that right now. But many physicists today would agree with Aristotle that it is a function of motion. But here's the thing. That kind of time, it is the tick-tock of the chronometer. It's what my Timex Ironman is doing, or whatever mechanism causes iPhones to work. It is instrumental, it's absolutely consistent. You could call it empty. Like a second has no content to it. A day has no content to it. It's a mere measurement. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
I love it.
I was trying to say, it's not a concrete thing in what we're talking about.
Right.
It's a much more metaphorical, like spiritual than spiritual.
Well, we're the church's way.
Yeah, the church.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I think one good example of this could be as simple as Sunday. I really like some of the things that Olson says about Sunday, the day Sunday. But for me, and you know, you need to be careful here because we're all secular. I am. My children certainly are. I wish I weren't, but I am. Right?
Yeah.
And it would be stupid to sort of deny
It'd
that,
be hard to lose it as a human being.
especially a modern human being living in the 21st century. But like for the Book of Common Prayer, what is the first day of the week? It's Sunday. But for ACL, for the organizers of ACL Fest, is Sunday the first day of the week? Nope, it's the weekend, baby. Right? Now, that's a radical shift. I mean, those two things are radically different.
You're right. That's true.
And it's funny because like, it's literally true that you can program your Google Calendar to have Sunday as the first day of the week or the last day of the week.
Tell it what you want it to be.
And that, yeah, so why, one of the things I always like to say here is I used to ask my children and also my nephew, why do we go to church on Sunday? And the answer that I trained them to spit back to me was because that's the day that Jesus rose from the dead. And for example, if you look at John chapter 20, which is one of the resurrection narratives, it says 3 different times on the first day of the week, on the first day of the week, on the first day of the week.
Mhm.
And we know that the Jews, and Jesus was a Jew, the apostles were Jews, but they celebrated the Sabbath. The word Sabbath, Shabbat, literally means 7.
Mhm.
So the Sabbath day was the last day of the week.
Right.
It was the weekend, so to speak. But in what we see in the New Testament is this weird ambiguity, and I would argue kind of a shift of emphasis to the first day of the week, Sunday, the day that Jesus rose from the dead. Side note, how many days was Jesus in the tomb? 3. But does that mean 3 24-hour periods? No. He
Inclusive record.
a little, there you go. He was in there a little bit on Friday, a little all day Saturday, and a little bit on Sunday. So like 3 calendar days, right? And so Sunday becomes the first day of the week, the day of resurrection. In the book of Acts, it says that the Jesus followers got together on the first day of the week to celebrate, to eat bread and wine, to pray, to have fellowship, koinonia with one another, and to share their money. That's church. In other words, they went to church, they gathered together on the first day of the week. So we see this shift from day 7 to day 1. And you could also think of day 1 as day 8. There's a theology of day 8 in the scriptures, which is one reason why babies were circumcised, male ones, in the Old Covenant on day 8, which is why many baptismal fonts have 8 sides, because they're supposed to remind us of circumcision in the Old Covenant. But see, time. Christians believe, and other religions as well, that time is not just instrumental, it's not neutral, it's not simply a measurement. In other words, it's not just chronos. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. So if it's not chronos, what might it be?
Is it gonna be Cairo?
There is another word. There's lots of different kinds of time, and one of them is kairos.
You cheated.
This idea, there's many kinds. There's other kinds of time. But the word kairos does pop up in the New Testament many times. One way to think about this word kairos would be the opportune time. So
Which is something I really respect with my ADHD. I'm like,
There you
I
go.
can't be on time. I can be at the right
And
time.
There you
that
go.
word is used in as sort of a praise to deities, the kairos is
yeah, the
kind of
oppor-
like saying hail. You know, it's used that way. It doesn't mean the same
Like a
thing, but
greeting.
It's a greeting.
oh wow.
Oh, wait, no,
Right.
no, that's not. I'm sorry. It's a different Greek letter for kairos. Kyrie is to greet someone, but it's with a,
Kairos is the greeting. I mean, and really it comes at
It's
the end,
not
as a
spelled.
salutation.
but it's not spelled.
Mhm.
Maybe not how to use
Yeah.
yours.
Well, so, no, I'm saying, so it's kairos with a K
Mhm.
is the
Time.
the time,
Mhm.
and then Kyrie, rejoice.
Mhm.
Kyrie, kyrete is with a,
Mm.
Interesting, because this is the
Kai.
one that's used in the.
In writing, you see it in writing.
Mhm.
okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe that's a transposition that someone
Yeah,
Could be.
did.
Never
yeah.
know.
You never know.
You never know.
You actually see the greeting one on some of the temples, like someone
Yeah,
wrote it in graffiti, like hail the,
Interesting.
rejoice for the god or goddess.
cool. Okay, so. Yeah,
Sorry.
Christians have a different way of keeping time, and I think that one way to think about that initially is Sunday. Sunday is the first day of the week. By the way, one of the weird things about that to me is that if Sunday is the first day of the week, this is radically countercultural, I would argue. That's kind of the point. Let's assume that Sundays are a day when we can rest, where we can kick back, where we can like not go to work, but maybe enjoy life with feasting, with fellowship, with getting together. Are you with me so far? Not trying to turn it into a law like the Puritans may have. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, the reason why the original seventh day was when God rested.
Yes.
Creation.
Yes, yes. And so what the Christians
So the
started.
Jewish Hebrew, yeah.
Yes. And I think that there is an ambiguity between day 7 and day 1, between Saturday and Sunday.
I kind of see that first day, the way we're doing it, we rest, we celebrate and we enjoy communion with
Yes.
other people
Yes,
as a wonderful beginning.
yes.
To carry us through the following
That's a good
6
way
days.
to-
I think that that's kind of what it's
Yeah.
supposed to be. That's so good. But here's one thing I want to point out that's kind of crazy. If that's true, then we're resting before we work.
Yeah,
Well, we're gathering energy for it.
I was gonna say
Yes.
that offends my sense of Protestant.
Exactly. Resting before you work. As if almost as if rest is more important than work.
You know, the beginnings.
Do you realize
beginnings are important.
beginnings are important? Yes. Do you realize that whenever God made the world in the book of Genesis, it was you can see a rhythm of working and resting. And for God, rest is just as important as work in the creation story. And yet we in our capitalist religious culture, right? Back to how I opened up, time is just a measurement. It's neutral, it's instrumental. It's meant to kind of dictate our productivity, and our entire lives are enslaved to that.
Right.
Whereas if this Christian understanding of time is true, we rest before we work. Almost as if it's not just that rest is at least as important as work, it's also that even our work is a gift. It's just a radically different way of imagining how we order our lives in time. And this is one of the things that the prayer book gives us. A weekly rhythm of resting and then working. It's very interesting. In this section that we're discussing today, which is chapters 2 and 3, Olson does talk about the collects. So I could give you a pop quiz real quick. We could talk about the Eucharist as a weekly thing and also a feast day thing. This is sort of review. And then we could talk about the daily office, which is daily, something that we do daily. There's morning and evening prayer. By the way, will you help me remember next time? I would love it if we could say morning prayer together.
Okay.
Be nice.
just to sort of get it out there. Here's what it is. Here's what it's like. You too can do
We used
this.
to do every Sunday except one.
That's right. Now, also,
I have a question.
I want to say real quick, we're gonna have a morning prayer service again on the St. George's grounds during the week as well, just FYI. Yes, Stephanie.
It just occurred to me, is office a Latin translation of liturgy?
No. I don't think so.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, but I really don't think so.
Because I was just thinking, I know we didn't talk about that, because liturgy is it's a Greek word.
Yes,
And it originally, so you can use it in modern Greek, like if you're talking about does something function. So for example, you could say, does the light work? Till false liturgy,
hmm
but it was also a thing that people contributed, I think you know this, in Athens. The way that they dealt with in their democracy, people having outsized amounts of money was that they had them, you had to fund some sort of large, either public work or some kind of large military work. So if you were a billionaire like Elon Musk, that would be where the defense spending would be coming from. They would have to outfit a warship, and that was called a liturgy. So that's where that word, that's
Yeah.
where it has the word orgos, so like to do a work of some kind.
Like an
So-
ergonomic pen,
Exactly, yeah,
a
yeah,
pen that helps you do work.
yeah, and ergon is a work or a deed, so there's an idea, that's why I was kind of thinking about like, when you say office,
Yeah,
thinking about like, less about like a space for work, and more like something that's official, so that it's a
Yes.
process that happens under
yeah.
a particular regimen, I guess. Anyway,
hmm
so that's why I was like, oh, is it a translation? But
I don't think it is.
I'll drop out.
But the daily office is a prayer service that happens not every week, but every day. So there's ways to order our time daily and ways to order our time weekly and ways to order our time seasonally. I forgot to bring a church calendar, but actually I'm gonna go get one. I'm gonna go get a church calendar. Seasonally, but also festily, because there's all these feasts that happen throughout the church year. And these are ways to organize our time. And these are ways to enjoy life and to rest. And to be remembered to God. Cause see, I think memory is a big part of it. If time is just the tick tock of the chronometer, you're not remembering anything. But if it's like, oh yeah, this is the day that St. George slayed the dragon, or this is the day that the storming of the Bastille took place, or this is the day that Jesus rose from the dead. Now you're being reminded, you're being remembered to something big, to something real, to God. Yes, you're becoming.
Weird word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what the word means?
It does.
We
It does.
reconnected?
Reconnected.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm gonna get a calendar. Here's what I'd like to do, and this has been a really weird class. But I think I want
It's
to.
interesting, not
Yeah.
weird.
Good. Oh, that's wonderful to
You
hear.
mean just today or like?
Yeah, today. I mean, today. I feel all very scatterbrained, but I would like to take 5 more minutes and just talk sort of broadly about the church calendar. Can we do that?
Mhm.
Let's do that. Now, I'll start out, while I get the calendar, I will leave you with this question. What is the first season of the church year and why? What's the first season of the church year and why?
I know the what, but I don't know the why.
What is
Happened.
And,
Advent?
well, it's a preparation.
Right, like
Some
also,
of us look at it as leading up to the joyful birth of Christ, but really it's a time of soul searching, or, remembering,
it's,
to be ready for it.
it's based around the life of Christ, the leading up to the birth, getting ready for the return.
There's an idea about it, an Advent is the triumphal march that a general makes into when he's returning to the city or he's entering the city.
Yeah, in Greek that would be the parousia.
Nice. What does venir mean in Spanish?
Say it again.
Vanier,
To come.
to come, to approach, to come to someone, to come to something. And that is what, that's the same, adviento.
It's the same.
My girlfriend said,
Venire.
a saying that included that.
So the first season of the church calendar is Advent.
Oh, no.
And I asked you, why is it first? And I think there's, like so many things, it's not like there's one correct answer. Why do you think Advent is first?
Well, Olson says that the calendar is based around the life of Christ.
Yes.
So we start with Advent, but preparing for Christ's coming,
How come Christmas isn't first? Like when he's born?
because we have stories before Christmas.
Oh, we have biblical stories before Christmas. So one of the answers might be something like, well, the story of Jesus begins before he's born, which is interesting. And also, which immediately directs my attention to his mother. To Mary. Very interesting. So isn't it interesting that in Advent, Christ is in the womb of the Virgin? I'm sorry, I speak in very traditional terms. And so Advent and Christmas are sort of about Mary.
Sure.
And you can't really separate Christ and Mary. Christ is a part of Mary. Boy, that's so true. Christ is a part of Mary.
I remember having this weird realization when we used to go to Compliment at St. David's.
Yes, I miss it so much.
And I realized it was like Virgin Mary's right there in the middle
Right.
at this church.
Mhm.
Yes.
Whereas here, the cross is really the focal.
Yes,
point.
yes.
But it doesn't mean that's, doesn't mean, it doesn't. It is meaningful.
So from a Protestant
Elsewhere.
perspective, it's tempting to look at that and be like, oh, that's idolatrous.
No, I'm not thinking that way.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
all right, cool. I think, I mean, I've thought that way. I thought that way 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I think that there's responses to it that are very good.
I think it would be wonderful to have an altar with Mary.
I do
and
too.
Delight.
I think to say it's idolatrous, it's forgetting that it's a metaphor. Like
Oh,
people forget.
Oh,
that
yeah.
There are things that are not just
well, that's good.
concrete things.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
symbols of something else.
Yeah.
Yes, that's good.
And so it's not just idolatry, you're not worshiping the cross.
I love that. Yeah,
The thought of
Ooh,
why.
yes.
Right.
I think that there's something, I love that, Ryan. I think there's something though about the Virgin Mary. You know, one of the traditional words for Mary is Theotokos, which means God bearer.
Mhm.
Like Mary bore God. Mary is God's mother. Did you know that God has a mother? Her name is Mary. Like it's crazy, in my opinion. But Advent is the first season. What's the second season of the church? Christmas. And what color is that? No, it's white.
Christmas and Advent are two different things.
They are two different things. Now they're associated, aren't they? And in our minds, we might even sometimes conflate them a little bit, and they are related.
I always think of it as being called Advent, but it's really, yeah, it's not. I mean,
You always think of what is being called Advent.
the season of Christmas.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, they're two
Yeah.
different seasons, although they're related. And we think of Advent calendars.
But this is new to me.
Oh, good. See, that's why we're doing this. Yeah. Dude, in Advent, okay, so Ryan, since it's new to you, I cannot resist the temptation to say that Advent is my favorite season. And one of the reasons why is because it immediately gets us to thinking about time. Because Advent isn't just saying Jesus is coming. It's not just talking about the coming of Christ in the womb of the Virgin. It's also talking about the second coming of Christ, which is a whole different thing. Because do you realize that we do confess that Christ will return? What does that mean? I don't know. Like that's what I did a PhD on. We could talk about it for years. Even though I only have a few seconds left right now, speaking of time. But yeah, Advent is about the coming of the baby Jesus. It's about the second coming of Christ. And it's also about the coming of Christ now. The coming of Christ always. Did you know that Christ is coming to you right now? In the air that you breathe. Do you know that Christ comes to us in the bread and in the wine of the Eucharist? Do you know that Christ comes to you in the form of a stranger on the street? So incredibly convicting.
Mm.
You know, how just unbelievably convicting. It makes me want to, I don't know, put ashes on my head and weep because of how many homeless people I pass every day. And
Yeah.
it's completely unmanageable. But see, do you realize that Christ comes to you in the stranger? That's Advent.
Christ is unmanageable.
Christ is totally unmanageable, but Christ is always coming.
Mhm.
He's coming in the first Advent. He's coming in the second Advent. He's coming to us continually all the time between the two Advents, and he's coming to us now. At every moment, any given moment, at any given now, he's coming. That's Advent.
Mhm.
Then you have Christmas, when the word becomes flesh. Then what? Then it's kind of weird. It gets green. The color becomes green, and there's different ways to think about it, but I think Olson probably agrees with me. You could call it the season. I think the best way to think about it is the season after the Epiphany.
Mhm.
Epiphany is the last day of Christmas. There's 12 days of Christmas, right? On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love said to me. Yeah, there's 12 days of Christmas, and the 12th day is Epiphany. And after Epiphany, you have this season of what you might think of as ordinary time. What is ordinary time? It sounds so boring. Oh, it's kind of nice because it's good. If your whole life was one feast after another, you'd be exhausted.
Mhm.
It's good to have some just ordinary time where it's just a Sunday. We're just going to sort of read the scriptures. That's good. So you have Advent, which is like a preview. Do you see how Advent is like a lead up to Christmas?
Evidently.
Advent is like the ramp up to Christmas. Then you have Christmas, the great feast. Then you have some ordinary time afterward. Guess what? It happens again. That same pattern happens again. Because after Epiphany, you have Lent. And you could think of Lent as a lead up, just like Advent. Now, what color was Advent, basically?
Purple.
Purple. What color is Lent?
Purple.
Purple. So it's like there's two semi-annual patterns that are superimposed onto each other. Advent is like Lent. Christmas is like what? Easter. Now, side note, there's also Holy Week, which is sandwiched in between Lent and Easter. So it's not a perfect symmetry. That's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing that it's not a perfect symmetry. I think about C.S. Lewis talks about how, isn't it interesting that the human heart is slightly off center?
Right.
Not perfectly symmetrical. We're not robots. We're not mathematical formula.
Right, everything else is, but not
Because
the heart.
everything else is, yeah.
Yeah. So right. So exactly. So right. It's as if God throws a curveball. God likes symmetry and order, but then he throws a curveball to mix it up. And that it's the same here. There's a little curveball called Holy Week, which is sandwiched between Lent, the ramp up, and Easter, the big feast. And then after Easter, you have some stuff, namely Pentecost, which is kind of like Epiphany. And then after that, you have ordinary time, which is green. And that's what we're in now. Right now, we're in ordinary time, which is why all these Sundays in October, all the days in October are green. Except for the feast days, which are little exceptions. But y'all, time. Do you realize that Christians have a distinctive approach to time? And it flies in the face of secular capitalist time. That's what I wanted to say today.
Point made.
Feasting and fasting. By the way, there is fasting. It's not just feasting. No, it's also fasting. Maybe there is no feast without fasts. Maybe there is no rest without work. Maybe these are yin yang things, like a lichen, which is a fungus and an algae that need each other. Maybe feasting and fasting need each other. Maybe work and rest need each other. Maybe this is why Christian time is not empty, neutral, and instrumental and a mere measurement. Because if that's all time is, work and rest become meaningless. And then guess what happens? The people with the power make us work all the time and we never rest. And I want to say that is from the pit of hell. And Christian time saves us from that. And honestly, what the church should be doing is rescuing the poor, the modern day serf class, the people who are enslaved by our capitalist system. And we should be saying to them, hey, God wants you to rest. Come to church. You can rest. You can feast. We have coffee hour. This is what deacons do. The job of a deacon is to make the connection between the mass, the Eucharist, the bread and wine thing, and a real feast. Not that that's not a real feast, but a feast with more goodies. That's what deacons are supposed to be doing. They're supposed to wait tables. And the table involved is both the altar / table and the grub table. The table with meatloaf on it. Anyway, I hope this was good. There's a lot here. And I'm the chief of sinners.
I think that the balance is critical between work and rest. Too much work destroy lives.
Yes.
I mean, when I was married, my ex-husband was a workaholic.
Right.
His culture, or how he grew up, he was taught that was what was expected of him, was to earn a really good living, to prove to his family and take care of his family.
Yep.
And I knew that about him.
I've never heard of that. I can't relate.
No, and I saw that as part of what was killing our marriage. Because he was never there to be a father. He was never there to be a husband. He was doing, though, what he thought he was supposed to do. He was a good man.
Right.
And I tried almost before we were divorced, maybe a couple of years before, to try to change that pattern. To have less expectation and material desires. He thought that I needed this beautiful home. I didn't need any of those things. I needed him.
Right.
He wouldn't do it.
Powerful.
He couldn't, he was not able, I
Yes.
mean, I thought, if you take a job that's less stressful. And I could take a job that gives me some fulfillment because my kids are in school and I have much to do.
Yeah.
We can lower our expectations of the material world and
Yes.
really live and enjoy what we enjoy together.
Yes. And this is totally
Who
related
wouldn't do it?
to the Christian approach to time. And I hope that that's been clear and encouraging today. And I'm not saying that capitalism is completely bad.
Well, not bad.
But it makes us slaves.
And
We become its slaves. And there's gifts of freedom in Christian time.
in my secular work, I'm a supervisor, and frequently I have people on my team who, need time off, and they, most of them, I've gotten, after 2 years of being their supervisor, I've got most of them trained to understand that taking time off is a good thing.
It is.
And a needed thing, but just this last
Good.
week, one of my team members was like apologetic that she needed to leave early because one of our cats was bleeding. And I was like, I literally told her this is not I'm asking that to leave. I'm telling you I'm leaving. That's what that is. And I want you to be very clear in that rest is something that you have to have.
That's cool. But you seem like a good manager, like a good supervisor.
The Lord be with you.
And also,
Thank you, Jesus, for this conversation. Thank you for everyone here. Thank you for couple of folks that are not here today. Thank you for the gift of time. Thank you that you're not simply, well, you are not a taskmaster. You do not enslave us. You do not say work, 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 work. No, you say rest, then work. And work is good, and we need to work hard. And yet you are a God of rest. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for these friends in Jesus' name. Amen.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Oh, man, you're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was, we did chapter 3.